You got a bit of a sneak preview then when Jeff went one slide too early. But next up, we've got Craig Sullivan. Craig is an inspector with WorkSafe. It says here in his bio that he grew up in regional WA after living and working on farms and joined WorkSafe as an agricultural inspector, I think, earlier this year. Yep. Craig's got experience in broadacre cropping as well as livestock production. He's worked in agricultural training and holds a Bachelor of Science degree. He is going to talk us about some of the dilemmas with regards to choosing the right vehicle for the right task. Come on up, Craig.
Decisions. Decisions that you make, sometimes in a very short space of time, can make a huge difference to your life, your family's life, and your community's life. One of those decisions on a farm is this: what vehicle should I buy? And subsequently, what vehicle should I use for the task I'm about to do today? This critical decision could possibly be the difference between getting home safely at the end of the day and having an incident that affects you, your family, and your community. This morning, what we're going to talk about is choosing the right vehicle for the task, with a particular focus on the use of quad bikes and side-by-sides on the farm. This topic is important as statistically, Western Australian agriculture has averaged one work-related quad bike fatality every year since 2019-2020. In addition to this, there have been an average of an extra 2.5 quad bike-related injuries per year reported over the same period, with agriculture being the biggest subdivision of those injuries, and 11 of the 13 injuries occurring to male operators. In response, WorkSafe inspectors have written 122 improvement notices over this same 5-year period in relation to quad bikes. 48 of those notices relate to the wearing of helmets. The statistics speak for themselves. A quad bike. A quad bike's a four-wheeled vehicle designed for off-road activities. They're often used in farming enterprises for mustering livestock, conducting spot spraying, checking crops, fences, other similar tasks. And the use of quad bikes is wide and varied throughout the different types of farming enterprises. So, what are the risks involved in using a quad bike? Well, I'm glad you asked. Thank you. The WorkSafe WA Guide to Quad Bikes in the Workplace identifies 4 risk factors that I'd like to highlight today. Number 1, rollover. A rollover can occur suddenly and in seemingly harmless riding conditions. Rollovers can and do occur even to the most experienced operators and therefore are a risk in the workplace that must be controlled. During a rollover, most injuries are caused by the operator being crushed between the quad bike and the ground or another surface, with frequent injuries occurring to the head and the chest. Other injuries occur when the operator is ejected from the quad bike onto hard surfaces, and quad bikes can roll in any direction, front, rear or side. Rollover can occur suddenly, even at low speeds, putting the operator at risk of injury or death from being thrown from the vehicle, trapped or crushed beneath it. Since October 2021, general use quad bikes must have a crush protection device fitted or integrated into the design So if the bike rolls over, it's held off the ground and the rider can avoid serious injury or death as a result of being crushed or pinned by the weight of the quad bike. Travelling around and visiting farming enterprises, inspectors often come across quad bikes that predate 2021 and as such don't have any crush protection devices installed. And occasionally we see ones that date post-2021 with the crush protection device removed. This represents a risk to the operator, and inspectors can and will issue improvement notices to help PCBUs mitigate that risk. Additionally, as employers have a duty of care to ensure workers are not exposed to hazards in the workplace, riders should be provided with and use helmets as recommended by the quad bike manufacturer at all times to protect themselves from head injuries. Often at a workplace, when inspectors ask to see the helmets, the businesses we ask to see the helmets, right? They bring them out and they're covered in cobwebs and dust and they tell us that they've been wearing them. It poses a risk to the operator, and as such we'll issue notices. Again, as we saw in that earlier statistics slide, 48 notices for the wearing of helmets. So these two operator protective devices, helmets and crush protection devices combined, have the ability to, in some cases, lessen the effect of rollover injuries to the operator of the quad bike. So if you're using a quad bike in the workplace, please use these controls. Second risk factor is equipment and attachments to quad bikes. An additional risk to quad bike operators can be the placement and weight of a load on the quad bikes, as well as the use of an attachment behind the quad. The risk of placing a load on the quad can be that the quad gets overloaded once both the load and the operator are on it, causing instability. In addition, if loads are not secured correctly, or if the load is a liquid load, the centre of gravity of the quad bike may move, particularly when you're on uneven terrain, and that causes instability. Attachments may also be oversized or over the manufacturer's towing capacity that they outline, again causing instability in the quad. These additional loading and towing issues can pose a risk to the operator of the quad bike. 3. Operator characteristics. Operators use quads in different fashions. One difference can be age. A young person on a quad may take a lot more risks. However, an older person on a quad may not have the core strength to actively ride that quad bike. A person's physical fitness can impact their riding ability. The operator's strength, core stability, eyesight, all need to be taken into account. The operator's competency also needs to be taken into account. It takes a different type of competency to muster cattle, to ride a quad bike and do other operations. Familiarity with the terrain is a factor. If you're putting a new person on a quad who doesn't know the farm, they don't know where the obstacles are, they don't know where the dips are, they don't know where the drains are, they're operating a quad bike on your farm, your risk factors go up in comparison to the old hand who knows the farm like the back of his hand. Misuse of the quad bike. An operator could use excessive speed. They can do wheel slipping. In addition, people carry passengers where the quad bike says do not carry passengers. All of these are risk factors. 4, the operating environment. The environment that the quad is operating in is important to consider, as that will affect the risk level. Of importance is the terrain the quad is operating in. Sloping terrain can affect the centre of gravity of the quad bike, particularly if you've ridden a quad bike, as you know, when you're riding on sloping terrain, you have the momentum pulling you down, moving the centre of gravity lower. Slopes put people at risk. The greater the slope, the greater the risk. Mud and sand as well when operating a quad bike. You're going to need a greater level of skill and a greater vigilance. So we need to train people in accordance with the level of operation that they're going to be required to operate in. Obstacles. Trees and branches pose a risk to the operator of a quad bike. Stumps and rocks and holes all hide quite easily in the long grass. So be aware of those things when riding a quad in those conditions. Animals and people can be a risk factor. Livestock, if you've worked with them, can be very unpredictable, as particularly in their movements when they're being mustered or anything like that. So a degree of training and awareness is required. Wild animals such as kangaroos and emus, when startled, can become an obstacle that the rider needs to negotiate. Pedestrians are also an obstacle. When operating in a shared environment, particularly around sheds, you're going to encounter both obstacles of people and other machinery. Sunlight during the day or sunset can make it harder for you to see in those conditions. Heavy rain can obstruct your vision. So there's a great deal of environmental factors to be taken into consideration before and during quad bike operation. So these 4 risk factors I've just highlighted: rollover, equipment and attachments, operator characteristics, and environment, should be worked through by the PCBU or their representative prior to quad bike use. Side-by-sides. A side-by-side is a vehicle with 4 wheels, rollover protective bars and seats for between 2 and 6 passengers, including the operator. Most side-by-sides have a tray on the back, which can be used for the transportation of one item from one place to another. Many businesses have invested in side-by-side vehicles instead of quad bikes, seeing them as a safer alternative. However, they're not a silver bullet. They do have risks. 5 risks of side-by-sides follow. Number 1, helmets. Side-by-sides must be used as the manufacturer intends. Manufacturers, if you have a look at your side-by-side, all have a safety placard on them somewhere. Most often they've got pictures on there, and on just about every side-by-side that I've seen, there is a picture of a helmet. And almost all of them have on their instructions that helmets must be worn at all times. Why wear a helmet on a side-by-side? Question I often get. First, in the case of a rollover, a side-by-side is open to the side. The operator or passenger may hit their head on the ground in the event of a rollover, causing serious injury. Second, if 2 people are in the side-by-side and there's an unexpected event, the 2 persons' heads may clash together, causing serious injury. Now, the brain's a complex organ. I don't pretend to understand it. However, it's clear that head knocks can cause serious injury both in the short term and the long term. So there's the need to protect the head from that injury. The best way? Wear a helmet. 2, doors and cabinets. Where there are doors and cabinets supplied on the side-by-side vehicles, they are to remain on the side-by-side vehicles. During workplace inspections, inspectors have seen doors taken off the side-by-side vehicle. We've seen cabinets removed from side-by-side vehicles. We've seen them cable tied back so that you don't use them. They're there to prevent the operator from being ejected from the safe space in the event of a rollover. To remove them allows the operator to be partially or fully ejected from the side-by-side. Seatbelts. A seatbelt can save your life. If there's a collision or rollover, your seatbelt keeps you inside the vehicle and keeps you in that safe space. What can happen if you or a passenger doesn't wear a seatbelt? You could hit your head on the protective frame, be partially or fully thrown from the vehicle, or you can be thrown against or through the windscreen. What's the challenge? Oh, I'm only going a short distance. Or I've just opened this gate and there's another gate just up there. I'm not going to put my seatbelt on. I'm just going to drive up there and then maybe I'll put it on afterwards. What's my response or our response? It only takes a few seconds to clip your seatbelt on. It may just save your life. 4, loads. Carrying loads in a side-by-side adds extra weight, which can affect your braking, move the centre of gravity, make the vehicle more difficult to control. Liquid loads are a concern and need to be risk assessed. When cornering or on a slope, as I've mentioned before, the centre of gravity can move, causing instability. Towing trailers that are too large for a side-by-side is also a risk. So how do we control these risks? Balance the load and keep it low. Strap the load correctly. Follow the manufacturer's recommendations in the manual for the amount of load that you put on there. Use baffles if you're carrying a liquid load. And never carry passengers in the rear of the cargo tray or a trailer. 5, environment. The side-by-side should also be operated in the terrain that it's designed for. Take care on uneven ground. Travel up and down slopes, not alongside. Ensure the operator is trained to the level they require to operate in the terrain they'll be operating in. Keep a constant lookout for obstacles such as rocks, holes, fallen branches, and the speed that you operate the vehicle in should be commensurate with the ability to see those obstacles, particularly when you're affected by bright sunlight, by sunset, heavy rain, etc. So back to our original decision. What vehicle are we going to purchase? I'm going to try and make it simple for you. Simple for you to remember, and I'm going to give you this. When purchasing a vehicle, think about the who, what, where, when, and WHS. Who, what, where, when, and WHS. First of all, ask yourself who. Who is going to operate the vehicle? Are they experienced? Are they inexperienced? What are they experienced in operating? If it is a vehicle for inexperienced workers, untrained on the farm, will you purchase a quad bike for them to operate? If you're employing backpackers or other workers and you have a pattern of people unable to drive a manual ute, will you purchase an automatic? What is the age demographic of that who? Is the vehicle for an older worker with reduced core strength? Then a quad bike might be ruled out. How many people are going to be moved at one time? If it's for more than one person, well, that's going to move There's a slide. If it's for more than one person, you may need to purchase a multi-person vehicle. Next, what? Ask yourself, what task am I going to be doing with this vehicle? What will the vehicle be used for? Will it be for the carriage of tools, equipment, or dogs? Well, that's going to eliminate a two-wheel motorbike, isn't it? Is it for bulky loads? Well, that's going to rule out the two-wheeler and the quad. Is it for towing? Well, then you're going to need a vehicle that has the towing capacity of the trailer or the implement that you're going to be towing. Is it for spraying? Again, load capacity. You're going to think about what the load capacity and the stability requirements are for that vehicle. Remember, a liquid load moves. Is it for mustering? You may need four-wheel drive capability. What will you be using the vehicle for? Next question, where? Ask yourself, where will this vehicle be operating? Is it on sealed roads, steep, uneven terrain, such as some of the hills around here, hard surfaces, soft or muddy ground? These factors are going to affect your decision on what vehicle you buy. When? Ask yourself, when will this vehicle be operated? Is it for night operation? Well, you're going to need good lights, aren't you? Is it a vehicle that you're going to use in all seasons? You may need to keep the operator both dry and shaded. Think about the when. And very importantly, WHS. What safety features will I need? Seat belts, crush protection, etc. If you're purchasing a side-by-side, what style of restraint do you need on the side? Doors, cab netting, or the side bars? Which one will suit my operation the best and provide me the best safety outcome? If you're purchasing a quad, are you going to purchase a second-hand one with no crush protection device? Or are you going to purchase a new one with a crush protection device? Or will you retrofit? And what PPE alongside my vehicle purchase do I need to provide for the workers who are operating it? Helmets, gloves, etc. The who, what, where, when, and WHS, these questions will help you think through what vehicle am I going to purchase so that you get the right vehicle and it is safe for workers. If you think it through, the same 5 criteria will help you on a day-to-day basis when you come to deciding what vehicle you're going to be using for that particular task. Who's operating it? What are we doing? Where are we going? When are we doing it? And what WHS do I need? Take the time, think it through, choose and operate safely. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Craig. Just before you head away, we have got one very quick question. It's clear that farmers have a responsibility to choose the right vehicle, but what's the supplier's responsibility, if any?
The supplier's responsibility? Well, the manufacturer puts in a lot of time and energy in developing their safety systems for their vehicles. You'll see quite often on every side-by-side there's a safety placard that they do. They need to be meeting their responsibilities under the law as well and meeting that selling into our market. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Craig.